Hey everybody, welcome back to Towers Books and Beyond, and this is not quite my best worst of 2017, it's more my most favorite least favorite of 2017. This is more about how the books made me feel than anything pertaining to their quality, so if you liked something that I didn't like or vice versa, then that's fine, more power to you. It is a very personal, very subjective video today, and I know for a fact that one of my least liked books is on a lot of people's favorite lists from 2017, so if you think I'm completely talking out of my ass, then yes, feel free to tear me apart in the comments. I welcome that kind of discussion. Also, I would like to point out that a good chunk of these books did not actually come out in 2017 because I had not yet engaged my strategy of reading more recent books, so yeah, a lot of my opinions on these might be completely old news, just bear with that. So let's start with a book from the disliked pile. How about The Girl from Everywhere by Heidi Halig, which this isn't so much what I dislike the most, it's more that it's a dishonorable mention. I have it in the pile basically so that I can have 5 for my favorites and 5 for my least favorites. This one though, I DNF'd it. I didn't actually finish the whole thing, and I almost always finish my books, so I was a little surprised too. I started it later in the year, and there was other stuff I wanted to get to. If you noticed my 40 videos about Star Wars, I felt like if I kept on reading this and putting my energy into something that my heart wasn't in, I was going to be completely exhausted. I got 100 pages into it, so that is a respectable amount, I would say, but it felt like it was taking forever for the actual plot to start. Like, I felt like we were still in a prologue part of the book, and it was just... if it was taking that long for things to get moving, then I didn't want to keep slugging through this, and I just wanted to move on to something I was more interested in. So this one I DNF'd, but if you say that it gets, like, so much better after the first 100 pages, then please let me know. Maybe I will give it another shot, but for this year, this one gets, I guess, dishonorable mention. Not quite least favorite, but... most meh. So now we'll draw from the most liked pile. How about To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han? This one is on here because it is so adorable. Lara Jean's Song is one of my favorite romance protagonists. Like, eat your heart out, Jane Austen, but Lara Jean and Jenny Han, they're getting all of the rom-com awards right now. Like this, is this getting a movie? Because I feel like it definitely needs a movie or TV series or a stage adaptation, just something to bring these characters to life. They're so great, and I love the love story between Lara Jean and Peter. It's very realistic, especially for YA, so I really appreciate that. I really appreciate this book. It just warms the cold recesses of my heart, and I'm so glad that there are 2 more books in this series because that means I get to see more of their story! Now let's grab another from the least favorite pile. How about The Star-Touched Queen by Roshani Chokshi? This one was a big disappointment for me because I was really excited when I bought it. It got a lot of good hype around it when it first came out, but ultimately it really fell flat. The dialogue was all over the place, the pacing was a mess, and the male love interest. I think Chokshi was going for some kind of East of the Sun, West of the Moon thing where it's like, oh, I can't reveal to you my secret until X amount of time has passed and then we'll fall in love with each other for realsies. But ultimately, he just came off as a dick and it did not endear me to him at all, so it was really hard to root for her getting back together with him. Like, I thought there's a point where you think that maybe he's a villain after all, and then she's gonna escape from him, but no, he's the actual love interest, and when they get together, it's not really that satisfying. Now, there were small nuggets of interesting plot points and characters that kept me going in this, and I was able to glean small little details of good writing out of here, but ultimately, this book was a major disappointment for me, and it's kind of a bummer. Now to grab another favorite, and I will choose The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas, and this one could not come as anyone's surprise because this is on like 90% of the favorite list for 2017. I have to hold this book backwards so it doesn't throw off my lighting. Everyone and their mother knows this book, okay? Like, I don't have to go into a lot of detail, and I probably don't think I'm qualified because, if you haven't noticed, I am a white guy, but there are 2 things that I want to bring up that I feel are understated in this book. First off is the fact that there are a lot of moments of levity and like points where I was laughing out loud when I was reading this book, and I think it's really important that Angie Thomas is able to do that. It really shows that even after everything happens, life can go on. We can find a way to move forward while also thinking about and paying respect to all of the tragedy that has happened in the past. Another thing I really appreciate about this book is that it is chock-a-block full of strong black female role models. Like, we do not get nearly enough of those, but here we have Star, where we have her mother, we've got her grandma, her aunt, and some of her friends, and her lawyer, who I'm pretty sure is being played by Issa Rae in the movie, which is just awesome. You know, I had a dream actually that Issa Rae showed up at my New Year's party. She didn't stay for long, she just stopped by and told me that I was doing great, and I feel like that's a really powerful omen for how this year is gonna go. Anyways, thank you Angie Thomas for bringing this book into the world. I can't wait to see what you do next. So now I'll grab another book from the least liked pile, and I'm going to go with 3 by Hannah Moskowitz. this is not the actual size. It's an ebook. I read it on my phone. Now, I was really excited to read this book when I first got it because, well, for one, I've really liked everything else that Hannah Moskowitz has put out, and also this is polyamorous YA, which I don't think we've ever gotten before, so that's pretty exciting. But ultimately, the whole book just kind of fell flat. One of my main points of contention is that none of the main characters seem to be mature enough to handle a polyamorous relationship. Like, they understand the whole mechanics of the thing, but when it gets right down to it, the emotional stuff, it really is a bit of a mess, like especially the main character. Now, to be fair, she is new to all of this stuff, but she spends almost the entire book being jealous of the other girl in the relationship, which makes it really hard to cheer for the relationship to succeed when it seems this unhealthy. And yes, there is character development that comes in at the end, but like, it is so close to the end that it feels very rushed and very unbelievable. And another major issue I had, which this one seems pretty common actually, because I saw it in a lot of Goodreads reviews, but there are so many spelling and grammatical errors in this. It's just random letters inserted or words misused or misspelled. It's just, you see that and it grabs you and it pulls you right out of the narrative, and you really have to wonder if this book was even proofread. So yeah, it's a major disappointment. Alright, back to the best pile, and I think this is another one that people might find divisive, but I'm going with William Shakespeare's The Tragedy of the Sixth Revenge by Ian Desher. Yes, I like one of the prequel movie plays better than the original trilogy or the sequel. I think it's because on paper, Revenge of the Sith is such a powerful movie, and so when you actually put it back on paper and you give it the ability to breathe and give good dialogue and show everyone's emotions of everything that's going on, you get a really strong story, and Desch was able to bring that out, and I really like that. I really respect that, and so I was surprised it was a favorite book, but it was definitely one of my favorite books of last year. Now back to the least favorite pile, and okay, this one actually was the worst one I read this year. Graphic novel, or rather trade paperback. It's Alters by Paul Jenkins and art by Layla Lays. So Alters is a comic about a young trans girl who has not come out yet. She's in the process of transitioning, she hasn't told her family, and also she just got superpowers. And so you'd expect some really interesting dynamic about like the double life one leads as being a closeted trans person, but being able to express yourself if you have a female superhero alter ego, and all the general like superhero civilian alter ego clashes that come out of these kinds of stories. It seems to know that that's something it could talk about, but it really does not discuss it that well. And also, there are some concerning things it brings up about disabled people. Chalice, the title character, she hasn't come out to her family because they're too busy dealing with her brother who has CP. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't act like one group's issues take precedence over another group's issues. Like, we have to work together, otherwise we're just going to tear ourselves apart. Also, they say a lot of slurs towards disabled people, and it's like, do you have the authority to say these? I don't think so. It was just, I bought this and I was really excited because, oh yeah, transgender superheroes, but no, it's transgender super zeros. I've been saying this a lot, but it's a major bummer. How about another good book? How about Whatever, or The Story of How Junior Year Became Totally Bleeped by S.J. Gosley. I think a lot of people weren't super fond of this. I wasn't sure how I felt about it when I first read it. I gave it a 3-star rating at the beginning of the year, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've grown to it, and I actually just recently changed this rating to 4 stars, because I really like it. It's very much more of a slice of life story than a romance story, even though there is romance in it. Just the whole writing style, though, and the main character was so different from anything you'd expect from the usual queer YA fare. It's very unique in that sense, and I can really appreciate that. And it definitely has weak points. There are some parts that I wish it did focus on more, especially when it comes to the character realizing their own sexuality. But I think ultimately, like, this may not be the best book that I read, but it's one of my favorite books that I read this year. Now for the book that may not be the worst one I read, but was definitely the one I liked the least, and is the one people might have contention about, but I am saying History Was All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. I did not like this book at all. Don't at me, or, maybe do at me, like, please converse with me, validate me! Partway through, I knew I didn't like it, but it took me forever to realize why I didn't like it, and it wasn't until the end where I realized that I know nothing about the main character. All we know is that they're gay, they have a dead ex, and they have OCD. At no point, I feel, was there any other information introduced about the character. They're so flat. The main character is so bland, really, that it was hard to root for him. It was hard to care about all the other relationship stuff that happened. It was even hard to care about him going through stuff with his mental illness, because there was nothing else to endear us to him. Like, I know that a lot of people with OCD really liked this book and really related to the main character, and if you did, that's great. Like, more power to you. I don't even think this is a bad book per se. I I think it could have been so much better, and that's why I liked it the least, is because the space between where it ended up and what I expected it to be is so large, I could not get past that. And now my favorite book that I read this year, it is The Reader by Tracy Chee. I did a full-blown review of this that I'm going to link to in the info card above, because if I start waxing poetic about this is going to be an hour-long video. But just know this is, I think it was one of the most interesting and greatest books of, it came out in 2016, right? One of the greatest YA books that I have ever read, and the sequel came out just in November, so that is definitely the first book I'm going to be buying of this year, and yeah, I can't say enough good things about The Reader, which means I have to stop now or else we're never going to be stopping this video! So those were my most and least favorite books of 2017, and if you completely agree with me or completely disagree, then you guys know the drill. You can comment, like, subscribe, or you can hit me up on social media, and until next time, I'll see you all later!